Hello guys, it's me Zain, and today we're gonna talk about something which I had in my mind for a long time, and then one of my viewers asked for it, so I thought, okay, let's give it a go. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about the Dendrobiums, the nobiles and the Phalaenopsis types. Actually, I thought I already made a video about this topic, but it turns out I did not. So I thought, let's give this shit a go. And you can check out these other Dendrobium videos, like on my channel too, if you want to. And if you're already here and you're new to my channel and you're interested in this kind of stuff, consider the option of subscribing to my channel and also hitting the bell button, and also consider the option of following me on Instagram, where I upload really nice pictures, and sometimes I just fail at being consistent with it. Whatever, let's start this topic. Where do I start? I have so many things in my mind that I cannot even tell that. So I have to start this topic by the fact that we have these Dendrobiums, these typical Dendrobiums, which you can buy in these flower shops, garden centers, basically everywhere where there is a little bit more variety to orchids, and not only the basic bitch Phalaenopsis is present on these shelves. On these places you can find from time to time Dendrobiums, and two main types of Dendrobiums are there regularly, and these are the Nobile type Dendrobiums and the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis, which I have to tell that the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis has nothing to do at all with the Phalaenopsis orchid. It's just a name, because the other name for the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis is the Dendrobium bigibum, and actually you can call it a Vepodis bigibum as well, and this is the fault of all these reclassification stuff. So if you're confused about that, don't worry. Me too. I'm gonna mainly refer to these hybrids which you can easily find like in flower shops, or those hybrids which are in this same category, the Nobile type hybrids and the Phalaenopsis type hybrids, which you may not find so easily in flower shops, but they are still in this hybrid parentage stuff group category, whatever. So wow, I use this plant as a decoration again. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. I love this plant. I love it. So I chose specifically this time to show you the differences between the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis, like for example this one, and the Dendrobium nobile. Like for example this one. This is a huge guy and it's really heavy, so I'm not sure if I can lift it up. Yes, I can. Maybe it will fall. The differences which I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna show that today. And there is a reason for that, because I'm a reasonable guy. At this time, my Dendrobium nobiles start to spike a little bit earlier than usual, and since both of these types, the Nobile types and the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types, are spiking right now, I can more easily show you stuff which is happening. But Zain, it's enough blabbing for today. Let's talk about the facts. You might say, oh, they're Dendrobiums, they need the same care and that's all. We buy orchids for their flowers, obviously, because the Dendrobium nobile and the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis and these types of hybrids, they have a specific care which you have to follow, a care, let's say, ritual, which you have to follow all year long to get the flowers. They don't come from the same environment. They experience different things in nature, therefore you have to provide different care for them to get those precious and beautiful blooms. Let's do a quick review about both of them. Let's start with the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type. So the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis come from an environment in which there is hot weather and stuff like that, and there is like no huge seasonal changes. The weather will stay rather warm all year long, so the plant actually doesn't evolve that way to need a seasonal change to actually trigger the blooming. Therefore, if you provide water and warm weather all year long for them, they will bloom, they will be really happy, and that's that. On the other hand, the Dendrobium nobile types come from an environment which have bigger seasonal changes, which means in the summertime they experience a lot of heat, a lot of warmth, a lot of everything, food, fertilizing, and when the winter comes, the season changes, so there will be colder temperatures and there will be much less water, which means that in the summertime we have to give them a ton of water and fertilizer, and in the winter time we have to rest the nobile types with little water and colder temperatures. And if you follow these care rules, is that a word? I'm not sure. And if you follow these tips, you should get flowers on your Dendrobium nobile types. So we can see this difference in these two categories, in these two groups of Dendrobiums. There are actually more groups and more sections in the Dendrobium family, let's say. They have these different requirements. That means it's actually good to know if we have a Dendrobium nobile type or if we have a Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types. And let's start off by the green stuff, the leaves. If you check the leaves out on a Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, the first thing you can see, for example on this one, that they are dusty as f. Apart from that, the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type leaves will be much more thicker. They will not be like so flimsy and flexible. You can still bend them, but if you try to fold them or whatever, they will really easily snap and it's not so easy to bend them. While on the other hand, with the Dendrobium nobile types, these leaves will be flexible, like ridiculously flexible. You can pretty much bend them as you want and they will not snap, they will not break, because they are really flexible. They are a lot thinner than Dendrobium Phalaenopsis leaves. Even if you just look at them, you can see the difference. Okay, don't fold them like in half and don't try to origami with them, because that's not gonna be good. You know, you get the idea. They are really super flexible. Now that was the first thing, the leaves. Now the second thing is a little bit more complex. Growth and appearance. We can tell that the Phalaenopsis types are the hard cane Dendrobiums and the nobile types are soft cane Dendrobiums. So we have these subgroups, let's say. So if we take a look at the appearance of Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types, there are these canes, and on the canes there are the leaves. The bottom leaves will be shed. The bottom leaves are just those leaves which protect the new growth, but after a time, after a cane is much more longer when it's growing, these bottom leaves serve no purpose, so they will be shed. Overall, it's not like a perfect rule, so it's not like every case will be like that, but in the case of Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types, we can say the canes have leaves only on the top half. The bottom half of these canes will be bare, without leaves, because that's how they evolved. If we take a look at my other Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, we can clearly see what I'm talking about here. These bare parts are only the bottom parts, and when the leaves are, that's the top half. On this plant I have an example which is quite the opposite. This new growth which was grown this year, you can clearly see that the leaves remained here on the bottom parts as well. So it's not like a rule that always this will be the case. Sometimes there can be more leaves on one cane. Most probably these bottom leaves will be shed in the next year. And in the case of Dendrobium nobile types, they are a bit different. There are these long canes and only the bottom, like 1 or 2 sections, the leaves were shed. But here comes the catch. So just to confuse you more, Dendrobium nobile types are prone to being semi-deciduous. That means in every winter, every resting season, the plant will think, okay, now I can lose some of my leaves. Regularly, annually, there will be shedding of the leaves on the plant. But that can happen with Dendrobium Phalaenopsis types also. But this leaf shedding will usually appear on the older cane. And the last, let's say, criteria, the flower spike and the position of the flower spike. So with the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, the flower spike will come from the top nodes. Dendrobium Phalaenopsis are those types which can rebloom from older canes also. Mainly your plant will grow new spikes only from the top parts, only from, let's say, from the top 5 or 4 nodes. There will be like no flower spikes growing from the middle of the cane or whatever. But in the case of a Dendrobium nobile hybrid, you can actually expect flower spikes from everywhere. They can be grown at the top, they can be grown at the middle, they can be grown even at the bottom. If there is an available node, that can bloom in the following years as well. If one node already bloomed, it cannot rebloom. So if you check out these little tiny bumps, these gonna be flower spikes. But hopefully they are not gonna be cakeys and they're gonna be flowers. They're not coming from only the top, they are coming from here, and here and here. For example, here at the middle part I have a flower spike, or well, it's a nubbin, but hopefully it will be a flower spike. And now I want to talk about why we refer to them as a Dendrobium nobile and the Dendrobium Phalaenopsis and these hybrids, stuff like that. Why we can say that one of them is a soft cane Dendrobium, one of them is a hard cane Dendrobium. Well, the thing is, the term Dendrobium nobile and the term Dendrobium Phalaenopsis or Dendrobium bigibbum, these terms refer to a species. These terms refer to a wild orchid which is growing in the wild, evolved in the wild, but as humans started to collect orchids and started to grow them and hybridize them, they started to hybridize orchids, different species with each other, and that's how we get these hybrids. And if you're an orchid hybridizer and you hybridize a species with a species, the end result will not be a hybrid, but the end result will be still a species, but maybe a different variety. These Dendrobium nobile and Dendrobium Phalaenopsis hybrids will have a little bit of other species in their parentage as well. So for example, this is my Dendrobium Oriental Smile variety Fantasy. And if we check out the parentage, still I refer to this as a Dendrobium nobile, but it's not a pure nobile. And if you check out the parentage of this Dendrobium on the Orchid Roots website, which is a really useful website, we can see that in the parentage the Dendrobium nobile is only like 46%, and there are other species like Dendrobium heterocarpum, Dendrobium signatum, Reginum, Findlayanum, and the Monoliforme. So these other Dendrobiums are still soft cane Dendrobiums, so they can go really well with the Dendrobium nobile, but this is not a pure nobile hybrid, because if only Dendrobium nobiles would be in the parentage of the Dendrobium Oriental Smile Fantasy, it wouldn't be a Dendrobium Oriental Smile, it would be a Dendrobium nobile, a species. And also this is the case with Dendrobium Phalaenopsis hybrids. They are not pure Dendrobium Phalaenopsis, there are some other species in the parentage, there are some other things in the parentage, but we refer to them as Dendrobium nobile hybrids and Dendrobium Phalaenopsis hybrids. So we can clearly see that these have mostly Dendrobium nobile as parents or Dendrobium Phalaenopsis as parents, but there are some other species which will make them have different shapes, different sizes, different flower shapes, colors and sizes, and that's how we actually get these beautiful hybrids. But since the majority of the parentage comes from those species, they will still have the requirements of the species which they are named after: nobile hybrids and Phalaenopsis hybrids. So I just wanted to make this clarification here, because when I was an orchid noob and I didn't know a lot about these Dendrobium nobiles and Phalaenopsis, and I was a little bit confused about them, I was like, why, what is happening here, what's going on? So yeah, this is my video for today, and I hope you liked it. And if you liked it, click on the like button, subscribe to this channel. Also, you can subscribe to my other channel, and don't forget to hit on the bell button so you will get notifications every time I post. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and see you next time. Bye guys.